I don't like my husband. Is that normal? What happens when the person you once chose to build a life with no longer feels like someone you even like? After nearly a decade together, 2 kids, and years of emotional disconnection, I find myself questioning everything. Is this just a rough patch all couples go through, or a sign that something deeper is broken? As I rediscover who I am post-motherhood, I can't help but wonder, what if the love is truly gone? The truth is, I didn't wake up one day and suddenly feel this way. It happened slowly, over time, like a dimmer switch, gradually lowering the light until one day the room just felt dark. I think back to when we first met and how easy things seemed. We had fun, we laughed, we connected in a way that felt safe and exciting. Back then, the idea of falling out of love with him seemed impossible. But now, here I am, quietly grieving the loss of that connection and unsure what it even means to love him anymore. We've been together for 9 years, married for 6, and somewhere in that stretch, especially after we had kids, I started to feel a growing distance between us. At first, I chalked it up to exhaustion, the stress of parenting, and the sheer busyness of everyday life. And for a while, I convinced myself that it was normal for couples to grow apart temporarily. But as the months turned into years, I realized this disconnection wasn't going away, was deepening. It's hard to admit that I just don't feel close to him anymore. Conversations feel surface level or forced. When he walks into the room, I don't feel excitement or comfort, I feel indifferent. It's not even that he did something terrible. He's not cruel or abusive. He's just emotionally distant. And somehow I've become emotionally distant in return. We've built a life together. We share a home, responsibilities, and beautiful children, but when it comes to emotional intimacy, it feels like we're just roommates going through the motions. The shift really hit me after the birth of our second child. It took a while, but I finally feel like myself again. My energy, my clarity, my sense of identity all returned around the 2-year postpartum mark. And with that clarity came a painful realization. I'm not happy. And more importantly, I don't think I've been happy for a long time. I had been so wrapped up in motherhood and survival mode that I didn't have the space to feel it. Now that I do, it's overwhelming. I often wonder if this is just a phase that long-term relationships go through. Maybe if we put in the work, we could find our way back to each other. Maybe the love is buried under years of stress and poor communication. But another part of me wonders if I'm holding on to something that no longer exists. Am I staying out of fear, habit, or guilt? Right now, all I know is that I miss feeling connected. I miss feeling in love. And I don't know if that's something I can find again with him more. If I've already lost it for good. A big part of that disconnection comes down to how we handle communication, or more accurately, how badly we handle it. Over the years, I've come to see just how fundamentally different we are when it comes to dealing with conflict, emotions, and difficult conversations. And those differences have created an invisible wall between us that keeps growing taller and thicker the longer we avoid breaking it down. He avoids conflict like it's a fire he can't put out. There's tension, he shuts down. There's a disagreement, he disappears emotionally. He assumes things instead of asking, and he keeps everything surface level to keep the peace. But that kind of peace isn't real, it's just silence wearing a mask. Meanwhile, I operate from the opposite end of the spectrum. I crave connection. I want to talk through the hard things. When I feel something is off, I need to address it. I can't pretend everything is okay when it isn't. But instead of drawing him closer when I express my feelings, I usually push him further away. He hears criticism where I'm asking for closeness. He hears blame where I'm asking for understanding. It's a frustrating, painful cycle. I bring something up. He shuts down or deflects. I get louder, more emotional, more desperate to be heard. He retreats even further, and around we go, until I'm left feeling crazy and he feels attacked. We rarely resolve anything, we just sweep it under the rug and hope it goes away, but it never really does. We've tried talking things out, but it always feels like we're speaking different emotional languages. I'm constantly reaching for intimacy, vulnerability, and clarity. Well, he seems to be running in the other direction, toward comfort, avoidance, and control. It's not just frustrating, it's lonely. I feel like I've been begging for emotional intimacy from someone who doesn't even see the value in it. Or maybe just doesn't know how to give it. I've read about attachment styles, and it all makes painful sense. He's the avoider. I'm the vacillator. He needs space. I need connection. He hides from hard emotions. I'm consumed by them. I know neither of us is right or wrong. We just wired differently. But knowing that hasn't made it any easier to bridge the gap between us. If anything, it's made it clearer just how deep that gap is. Sometimes I wonder, if we communicated better, would we still feel so far apart? Or has the damage been done, little by little, through every unresolved argument, every silent treatment, every missed opportunity to truly see and hear each other? I'm exhausted from trying to decode his silence. I'm tired of always being the one to initiate the hard talks. Maybe we could learn a new way to relate. Maybe there's still hope if we both committed to changing these patterns. But part of me doubts he even sees the problem the way I do. And that's what scares me most, not just that we're different, but that I might be the only one who sees just how far we've drifted. That emotional distance has spilled over into every other part of our relationship, especially physical intimacy. It's hard to admit this, but I'm no longer attracted to him. Not physically, not emotionally, not romantically. And I don't say that to be cruel, okay? I say it because it's the truth I've been trying to ignore for too long. And the more I force myself to pretend otherwise, the more resentment builds inside me. There was a time I looked at him and felt warmth, excitement, desire. Now I look at him and feel ... nothing. Or worse, I feel annoyance, sometimes even disgust. That's hard to say out loud and even harder to live with every day. It's like the version of him I once fell for has slowly faded. And in his place is someone I barely recognize, someone I wouldn't choose if I met him for the first time today. I know attraction changes over time. I never expected the butterflies to last forever, but I did expect to still feel something, to still want to reach for his hand, to still enjoy being close, to still find comfort in his presence. Instead, I find myself avoiding physical touch. I tense up when he comes near. I dread intimacy not because of him personally, but because of the weight of everything left unsaid between us. It's like our emotional gap has become a physical barrier, too. It's painful to feel this way about the father of my children. He's not a bad man. Helps with the kids, he provides for the family, he's steady. But steady isn't the same as connected. And being helpful around the house isn't the same as being present in my heart. I feel like I've been going through the motions, trying to keep things normal for the sake of the kids, but inside I feel like I'm slowly disappearing. Sometimes I try to remember the last time I really wanted to be close, to be intimate, to laugh together. And I can't. It's been years, not weeks or months years. And that realization makes me question everything. Can attraction ever return when emotional intimacy is gone? Can desire grow in a space that feels emotionally neglected? Or am I clinging to a past that no longer exists? It breaks my heart to think I may have fallen out of love with someone I once dreamed of spending my life with. I didn't plan for this. I didn't stop trying. But over time, the spark died, and I don't know how to light it again. I want to believe it's possible. I want to believe that love can come back. But I'm not sure how long I can keep pretending or whether pretending is even fair to him or to me. It wasn't always this clear to me. In fact, for a long time, I couldn't even fully name what I was feeling. Everything after becoming a mom was a blur. I was just trying to survive physically, emotionally, mentally, especially after our second child was born. I went into what I now recognize as a kind of survival mode. Days blended into nights. I was exhausted in ways I didn't know were possible. And somewhere in all that chaos, I lost sight of myself. For the first 2 years postpartum, it felt like I was living in someone else's body, someone else's life. I was a mother, a wife, a caretaker, but not much else. I had no space to think, to reflect, to feel. Everything was about keeping the house running, keeping the kids alive, keeping the peace. My needs got pushed so far down that I stopped noticing I had them. It was easier not to feel the weight of what was missing in my relationship. But something shifted when I hit the 2-year postpartum mark with our youngest. Slowly, I started feeling like myself again. Not just functioning, but thinking, feeling, wanting. I started noticing the things I'd numbed out. I started hearing my own thoughts again, ones that had been buried under diapers and dishes and never-ending to-do lists. I didn't even realize how far away I drifted from myself until I began to return. And with that return came clarity, painful, unavoidable clarity. I started seeing my marriage with clearer eyes, no longer through the fog of exhaustion or hormones or overwhelm. And what I saw broke my heart. Not because there was a big dramatic betrayal, but because there was so little left, so little connection, so little joy, so little us. I used to blame the stress of parenting, thinking maybe things would get better when the kids were older. But now I realize it wasn't just the kids or the stress. It was that even when things got quieter, even when I had space to breathe, I didn't want to breathe next to him. That realization hit hard. Because I wanted so badly to believe we were just going through a hard season. But now I'm starting to wonder if we've been quietly unraveling for years. What's worse is that I feel like I've been living a double life on the outside, playing the role of the supportive wife and mother, while on the inside silently screaming. Rediscovering myself also meant rediscovering how unhappy I've been. And once that truth came into focus, I couldn't unsee it. I don't hate him. I don't wish him harm. But I'm starting to question if I can keep living a life that doesn't include space for me. Now that I'm finally awake again, I'm not sure I can go back to sleep. And I don't know how to be fully myself in a relationship that no longer sees or supports the person I've become. Now that I'm finally awake again, I'm not sure I can go back to sleep. And I don't know how to be fully myself in a relationship that no longer sees or supports the person I've become. Still, even with all of this awareness, I feel stuck between two versions of myself, the one who longs for something more and the one who's terrified of what it would mean to actually walk away. The thought of ending my marriage doesn't just feel heavy, it feels paralyzing. Not because I want to stay necessarily, but because leaving feels like opening a door I've been afraid to even knock on. I come from divorce twice, actually. I know what that life looks like from a child's perspective. The back and forth, the awkward transitions, the confusion, the way you feel like your world is split down the middle, even if your parents love you. I remember the ache of wanting everything to stay whole, even when it couldn't. I swore to myself that I'd never put my kids through that. I wanted to be the one who made it work, the one who broke the cycle. But here I am staring down the same possibility I always swore I'd avoid. And yet, I also know what it feels like to grow up around unhappy adults who stayed together for the kids. That quiet tension in the air. The forced smiles. The sense that love is something you endure rather than something you feel. I don't want that for my children either. I didn't want to teach them that it's normal to settle for a life that doesn't feel good. That love is supposed to be lifeless and heavy and hard all the time. So I'm caught in this emotional limbo. I ask myself constantly, is this just a season of marriage that we need to push through? Or is this a sign that the marriage has run its course? Am I just not trying hard enough? Or am I finally seeing things clearly for the first time? I've questioned whether I'm being selfish for even thinking this way. I wonder if I owe it to my kids to stay and fight harder, to keep showing up until something shifts. But I also wonder what example I'm setting if I stay in something that makes me feel unseen, unheard, and unloved. If I teach them by example that marriage means sacrificing your own joy indefinitely, what message does that send? Sometimes I fantasize about a different life, one where I feel free, seen, energized. I imagine waking up without the weight of this emotional disconnect. But then the fear kicks in. What if I regret it? What if it's just a phase? What if years from now I look back and realize I gave up too soon? So for now, I sit with the questions. I live in the tension. I try to be honest with myself even when the truth hurts. I don't have the answers yet, but I do know this. Pretending isn't sustainable. And whatever happens next, I want it to come from a place of clarity, not fear. I owe that to myself and to my kids.